Well, it looks like we have a quorum now, and I will get things started. So, my name is Sam Gussman. I am from PATIO, the Technology Transition Office at ARPA-H. I'm joined today by my colleagues Ilana Hancu, a program manager here at ARPA-H, Aldo Badano from the Center for Devices in Radiological Health at CDRH at FDA, and Chelsea Schiller from ARPA-H's Investor Catalyst Hub. Today, we're here to discuss the concept we are developing together with our partners at CDRH and FDA for a potential medical imaging data marketplace. We're seeking input from the public to understand the impacts that this would have, and also to help shape our strategy for what could become a future ARPA-H program. Yeah, if you want to go to the next slide. So, ARPA-H is the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. At ARPA-H, our mission is to accelerate better health outcomes for everyone. We hope that the marketplace we are considering will help make this a reality by tackling some of the biggest barriers to development and fielding of new AI and machine learning capabilities. All right, next slide. I'll turn it over to Chelsea to talk a little bit about ARPA-H.
Thanks, Sam. Welcome, everyone. My name is Chelsea Schiller. I serve as the director of the Investor Catalyst Hub. We have convened everyone here today through ARPA-H's Investor Catalyst Hub. The Investor Catalyst Hub is a nationwide health innovation network solving for challenges in technology transition. We provide a platform to shape ARPA-H research efforts through engagements with ARPA-H program managers, assistance with teaming for ARPA-H programs, and R&D opportunities like the network survey we are here to discuss today. We are running this specific survey through the Investor Catalyst Hub to reach and activate you all, a nationwide network of data users, managers, and providers. We really appreciate you joining and encourage you to stay connected with the Investor Catalyst Hub to learn more about opportunities coming through the hub in the future. With that, to kick us off for the day, I'm pleased to introduce Ilana Hancu.
Slide. So we thought that it would be a good idea to give an overview of what the process is and where we are. So essentially, we started having conversations with FDA probably a few months back, and realized that there is a high-level problem, which is the lack of high-quality data at scale for innovators that would also prepare them for regulatory evaluation. So these conversations continued. We did a quick landscape analysis to understand what organizations, what stakeholders are in the field, and what other expertise and organizations that are attempting to solve this problem. And we are at the point at the survey. At the tail end of this line, hopefully there will be a program launch. But the purpose of the survey is to gather information. The program that will hopefully be out there will be shaped by the answers that we are getting from you, the contributing organizations and stakeholders. So it is in everybody's interest that you contribute. You are here, you ask questions, you answer the survey, because these answers will actually define how the program will look like. The program is not something that we sat down in a room and dreamt about it. It's something that we want you to define. So once we get the results from the survey, which will close mid-April, we'll synthesize the results, we'll actually make them public as well. And these results will help us define the program, how it would look like, what the goals may be, what the milestones are, what is the business model. We'll use these insights to assemble the program, get internal approvals, and hopefully at the end of the line, there will be a program launch. So we are somewhat in the middle of the process, but again, it is very important we get these answers from the survey, properly define what kind of program we'll put out there. Next slide, please. So what is the problem that we would solve? And typical to ARPA-H, we have an what-if statement, and the what-if statement is what if we could streamline access to affordable, high-quality, regulatory-ready medical imaging data to develop software as a medical device and AI-enabled products that are safe and effective for all Americans. So essentially, there are multiple levels of problems that we're attempting to solve. Probably at the lowest level is the fact that researchers in different institutions have a hard time accessing medical data that would enable them to develop their next generation technologies, including disease detection, evolution characterization software, right? So as a researcher, I spent many months quarreling with lawyers about having access to specific types of data that I needed in my research. So that's the lowest level problem we're solving. It gets more complicated after that. So the other aspects that we realized is that hospitals, imaging clinics, they do sit on a trove of data, which they have no means to commercialize up to this point. So what if they could actually get some revenue based on these resources that they sit on? And moving forward, assume whatever algorithms researchers develop, they're very valuable, and there are small companies or larger companies that want to push these developments throughout regulatory approval. So at that point, instead of needing maybe thousands of data sets, you need tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of data sets, all representative of the disease that you are tackling. All the data needs to be consistent with qualifying reference standards. And the question is, where do you get this data? And there aren't any obvious sources, at least in certain domains in the medical imaging data region. So the last question that we're also trying to answer is the fact that FDA, when they approve a drug or a device, there is a means for them to go and check further on that whatever was approved by the FDA is what the consumer is provided with many years down the road. And software is an interesting beast in that there is no way for FDA to figure out later on if that software that they had approved has evolved and it's still as useful as at the point of time when it was approved. So how does FDA conduct this post-market approval and validate that the software remains useful? So these are the sets of problems that the medical imaging data marketplace we foresee as addressing. It needs to have an infrastructure for federated and centralized data workflows. Very importantly, it has to have means to connect with data providers. So it has to be able to suck data from providers. And it also has to have means to offer this data to the community who needs the data. So it needs to have protocols for communication between the repository and the users. It obviously needs to have a friendly user interface. And most importantly, we foresee ARPA-H as setting up this program and jump-starting it. But we don't want this to die once ARPA-H pulls back. So we will be asking from the proposers to have an economic model that would enable this development to live once the program ends and the ARPA-H funding ends. So how do you foresee this as being sustainable, growing, accepting multiple other kinds of data, while also providing value to the data providers and to the data users? Next slide. Okay, and I will stop here and I will pass the baton to my colleague Aldo Badano from FDA.
Thank you, Ileana. And let me start by saying that we're all excited to be working together with ARPA-H on this project. I want to emphasize a few of the things that Ileana conveyed in the previous slide. The vision that we have, which will be influenced by the results of the survey, is of a self-sustaining, federated marketplace that will be useful for catalyzing transformative medical AI innovations. And here's a diagram, very high level, not a lot of details, I've been told, but it's what we can, what we'd like to show at the moment, which is on the left, the data providers, on the right, the data user, and in the middle is this marketplace concept that we are developing. If you look at the left, you'll see many of you in the audience will see yourselves in that list. Hopefully, there are clinical sites. It could be also resources that aggregate data. It could be also professional organizations or other types of organizations that have started already thinking about collecting and sharing data, which is not a new topic, as you know, and the general research community as well. Many of you will also see yourselves in the right panel, which is the data users. I'm from the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, so device developers, these are, I would say, my own focus group, if you want, of stakeholders, but this goes further than that, including drug developers, patient groups that might be interested in understanding performance in different populations. Even the same clinical sites might be also interested in additional data that will supplement their existing data to perform additional studies, and other public health stakeholders come to mind as well. And in the center, there's the marketplace where basically at the moment we have two sections of the marketplace. One on the top that we're calling for the moment the data manager team, which is an operational team and providing the logistic support, dealing with some of the the elements that are fundamental and fairly well known in the community, like storage protocols, de-identification, cataloging, search and access of the data sets. On the bottom, you see that there's our contribution would be a data evaluation tools team that will work on defining what are these parameters that need to be addressed for the data to be regulatory ready, including aspects of annotating the data, how the data is, how the truth of the case is established, sequestration procedures to ensure that algorithms do not overtest or fine-tune to particular data sets, bias and diversity metrics, and a statistical analysis associated with all of that. So here it gives you a general overview of what the current thinking of the concept is. Next slide, please. And to jumpstart this, we are currently thinking that there are two areas for a number of reasons that are quite ready to be developed in this way. One is screening and diagnostic mammography. There's a great deal of data sets available, and there's great interest in the innovator community to provide AI devices that will work in the screening and in the diagnostic area for breast cancer. And the other one is whole slide imaging data sets that for prostate and breast, but there may be other tissue types or tissues that would be of interest. And what we're asking you as part of the survey is to provide your feedback on if there's other areas within digital pathology or radiological imaging that you think should be addressed by this potential program, or any other area that you think is mature enough to undertake this type of attempt. Let's see, the next slide. I think goes back to Chelsea.
I believe Marie.
Sorry.
Sure, it looks like we have some frequently asked questions that have arisen. Can you go to the next slide? So we've received several questions so far, and we thought we'd answer some of the most frequent ones. Will the government be running this marketplace? And the answer to that is no. The marketplace will be managed by a partner or performer. Next slide. Why do ARPA-H and FDA want to develop a medical imaging data marketplace? And the answer to that is we want to support innovation. Data is critical for developing and testing new technology. Limited access to high-quality, regulatory-ready medical imaging data hinders innovation and delays FDA clearance pre-market authorization. Next slide. What types of data are expected to be in the marketplace? So the first use case for this initiative is a focus on medical imaging data. So we're specifically looking at digital pathology, radiology, and that includes mammography, MRI, CT, and PET. And in addition to that, we're also looking for your recommendations. If there's an area of medical imaging that you feel like is an important need to address as part of this initial marketplace, that's really important to indicate as part of this survey. Next slide. Another question we've had often is, what does regulatory ready really mean? And really what it means, it's greater confidence. The data in this data marketplace is intended to reduce the underlying data quality issues that are commonly seen in FDA pre-market reviews. And so this regulatory ready data helps address those issues that impede FDA pre-market authorization. Next slide.
All right, I think that's my cue to take it back over. Thanks, Marie. So I want to just spend a little bit of time talking about what is the network survey. And while I know I'm repeating what Ileana said earlier, I want to emphasize that we are really in the concept development phase of developing a program. And the network survey is a means for us to be able to gather your input at scale. Normally, we would have one-on-one conversations, but there are only so many of those that we can have. The network survey is our attempt to try to do this to reach a much broader network of researchers and experts across the country that we wouldn't be able to do using more conventional means. The questions in the survey have been intentionally designed to help us source key pieces of information that are going to really inform the way we structure going about building the program. We don't want to build something that doesn't address the needs of the research community, but also wouldn't work for the people, the organizations generating and providing the data. We need to understand all perspectives and aspects in order to do this effectively. So if you want to go to the next slide, we have divided the questions in the network survey into 3 groups, and each group corresponds to a different stakeholder archetype that we've identified. So for the first one, we have data users. So these are researchers, startups, application developers, the groups and people that are out there that need access to medical imaging data for training AI and machine learning models. And we have a variety of questions we're asking, but there's essentially centering around what data do you need? What is going to be most impactful for you? How are you getting it now? Where are you getting it? What strategies have you developed? How much does it actually cost you to get it? And then what are your challenges in actually obtaining the data that you use for your research efforts? For the second archetype, we have data managers. So you can think database managers or a data exchange administrator or data broker. And for them, we really want to understand how they've built systems, how they've set up agreements with data providers, what types of structures have they used and implemented, and then how do they actually engage users and work with the users that are using the data that they provide. And then how do they ensure that data interoperability exists amongst their data set? And then lastly, we have data providers. So think radiology departments or hospital systems. And we really want to understand from them, first of all, what kind of data do they already have? And could we access through them? And then what metadata is associated with it? And then to what extent they're already sharing their data and how they do that, but also what challenges are associated with it. And if they would be interested in participating in a marketplace or a future effort through ARPA-H, what challenges would we need to address in order to enable them to do that? So for these 3 archetypes, we recognize that many organizations won't fit neatly into one bucket. So the survey has been set up so that you can select multiple archetypes and respond to multiple sets of questions. So that shouldn't be a limiting factor for anyone. I will apologize, though, that if you pick all 3, there will be quite a few questions for you to answer, but we really do appreciate everybody's feedback here. All right, if we want to go to the next slide. So we have a QR code and a link to the URL for you to find the survey. We also set up an email address. So if you have any questions about the network survey, please email us. It's midm@arpa-h.gov. We'll be more than happy to get back to you and help address any concerns or questions that you have. And on that note, I think it's time for Q&A. So I will turn it back over to Marie to MC us.
All right, thanks, Sam. And thanks to our speakers. So please feel free to put your questions into the chat. You know, we not only is this an opportunity for you to ask questions, but, you know, this is your an opportunity to answer any questions that you may have had. If you started the survey, please feel free to drop in as we're going along. We have one question. Oh, sorry.
Marie, let me say one more thing, because I'm not sure it came through loud and clear. So the point of this is not to create competition for anybody, right? So this isn't going to be another data provider. This is going to be a sharing mechanism, right? So it's sort of the iTunes. It's the way to link everybody. We just want to make sure that data providers and data users are being linked through the marketplace. All the existing marketplaces, data providers, they should be able to feed each platform and be able to provide the data they already have, right? So it's not competition for anybody. It's a way for linking everybody together, right? So that needs to be very, very clear. And it is very important. Again, our programs at ARPA-H, we do a lot of work to define them. And this is your opportunity to help define it in the proper way. By the time we put the announcement out, it's too late for you to say, oh, this is all wrong. It shouldn't have been done this way. In order for it to be right, the only way to do it is for you to give us your feedback now, because we can build it into the program and have the program announcement come up in a way that you feel is most appropriate to link these two entities together. So please do take the time and take the survey.
Thanks, Ileana. All right, this first question is for you, Aldo. So one of the a question that we actually commonly get is patient demographics is a critical component to ensure the developed product is scalable to the target patient group, which gets into HIPAA. How will this be handled?
Yes, so part of the marketplace concept is for jointly with everybody else, determine what is needed. Of course, data, when we say data, is not just a few pixels or maybe a lot of pixels. It's all the context of the data, and that's very important for the studies, for the evaluation studies that you will do with the data. So that has to be part of the marketplace, and our team at FDA will, in connection with others as well, will work to determine where is it that we need new tools or new ways of interacting with the data and facilitating that implementation in the marketplace.
Thank you.
So, I mean, maybe to clarify, is data needs to be de-identified in a way in which that information is maintained, because that information needs to be available for those downstream who use it. And we are aware that not all images contain that information, but the point is that the marketplace has to contain enough with the race, denomination, gender, whatever, to ensure that the end users have access to that information.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think you've seen in the slides that we talk about a federated and centralized, and there are trade-offs there. But obviously that question will take on different meaning if we have a federated system where the data resides and some of the information is used by the models in the sites. So yes, that's a very important question. Can I answer the second part of that?
As well. Ileana, maybe you can help answer the second part of
Hold on, because Aldo, did you want to continue on something?
Yes. Can I answer the second part of that question myself?
Sure, yeah.
Yes. So you saw also in one of the slides that we had the term sequestration. Of course, our contribution as well from a regulatory perspective is that the data sets will be available, but that doesn't mean that they will be available open source to anybody who wants to use them all the time. As you clearly alluded to, you may need data to develop the algorithm, maybe to fine-tune the algorithm, and then you need to test for regulatory purposes, and those data sets need to be independent to some degree, and that's where the sequestration comes in, and that's one of the important considerations that this marketplace will have implemented in terms of performing evaluation studies for devices. I'll talk about devices, where the marketplace will not be completely open to developers.
Thanks, Aldo. This next question I think can go to Sam. Some people have additional information they'd like to provide that the survey really doesn't have enough space to cover. Is there another place that they can provide that information?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're more than welcome to email that information to the MIDM@ARPA-H.gov email address. Also, I saw about a specific part about if you refilled out the survey, would it override your original response? I believe the answer is no. We can double check that, but you should be okay to just submit it again.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, you can email that same address. While we're waiting for additional questions, Sam, I have another question for you. Will metadata be included as part of considerations for this marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. The intention is to have robust metadata associated with each of the medical imaging images that's provided through the marketplace. The specific pieces of metadata, though, are we're looking for input from users through the survey to determine what needs to be provided. You know, for example, if you have kind of whole slides for digital pathology, do you need just a half page of associated pathology report, and would that be sufficient? But yeah, we're really looking for input through the network survey on exactly what metadata to associate with it.
Thanks, Sam. Aldo, for you, I know we talked about regulatory ready, is that greater confidence, but is there any kind of certification involved at the result of this data marketplace? Can FDA?
Thank you, Marie. Yeah, so the answer is that, of course, the FDA processes and the regulatory framework will not be affected. There's no certification by using the medical imaging marketplace. However, what is the goal here is to accelerate the review by providing data that or studies that use data that already use some of the best practices as we see them. So it's, we've seen in several submissions, that product submissions to CDRH, that data quality issues are a significant component of delays. When the package comes in, there may be an instance where the cohort or the distribution of patients is not quite what is needed for a particular claim, and therefore it goes back, and you may need to go to get more data or do another study, and that's a lot of time that if we can prepare the data in a way that already some of these data quality issues are addressed the first time around, then it will help us in the review, and clearly it will help the companies that are coming with packages.
Thanks, Aldo. Ileana, this next question is for you. So when is this marketplace actually going to be available for users to use?
Well, I sort of feel the same way. I kind of like it would be available yesterday, but the fact is that somebody has to build it first, and that's why we're having this conversation. So We will be getting the results of the survey in April. If everything goes well, we should have an announcement, a posting. So the program would be, hey, performers, come and build it, right? So that will be in the summer, hopefully. And then there will be applications from different entities who want to build a marketplace. You know, we move fast at ARPA-H, but we have limits too. So, you know, in an ideal world, we would award it before the end of the year, and then it probably takes at least a couple of years to build it. And obviously, we don't want this to be built from scratch, right? So existing entities can apply and build that marketplace, being fully aware that they have a large infrastructure already built. And the cheaper and the faster you can build it, the better off everybody will be, right? But realistically speaking, this wouldn't be available sooner than maybe a couple of years.
Yeah, and
Hey, can I add on to the timeline real quick? I realized I don't think we actually set the deadline for responding to the survey, which is April 16th. So please respond to the survey before then. And once we get the responses in, we are actually, as they come in, so there's no harm in responding sooner. We're reading every single response that we get, and we're collating everything and aggregating it and starting to analyze results and develop a report that we'll release back out to everybody who responds with our findings and about what we learned. And we expect that to be sometime during May. Fingers crossed, there are no delays there. But yeah, after that, like Ileana said, we'll work on incorporating that into the program design and launching the program. But yeah, just wanted to say April 16th is the deadline to respond.
thanks, Sam. This question is for you, Aldo. Are you looking to leverage an existing cloud marketplace that may already exist?
Yes, I think Sam alluded, and Ileana as well. Again, this is not something that we want to start from scratch. There's great work being done by multiple groups throughout the world that have looked at either components of the marketplace concepts as we have it right now, or actually doing kind of almost everything that we want. So absolutely, I think, and cloud, of course, will be, even if we don't use federated, which I think we will, if we centralize things, I mean, cloud is obviously going to be a significant component of the marketplace for sure.
All right, great. Any other questions?
I think there was a portion of a question that didn't get answered before from Ersin. And that related to the fact that one particular entity may need to access one data set multiple times. And the question was whether we would allow users to download this. I think it depends in the end whether. My gut feeling is that we would go with a mixed model in which we would have a portion of the data centrally held and another portion would be federated. But we are looking for input as to how do you feel it is more valuable. So if it is federated, then definitely we understand that for FDA submissions, you may need to access data multiple times. So obviously that would be a facility that you would have. If you cannot download that data on your computers, or alternatively, we would allow you to download the data on your computers. So we are fully aware of these needs, and we would make sure that the marketplace would have these capabilities.
And just to add to that, also outlining if just being able to access the same data multiple times is needed, or if you really need to download the data, that distinguishing factor would be helpful to answer in the survey as well. Okay, we have another question. Are you planning to require the use of any particular standards? Sorry, this is to Aldo. Are you planning to require the use of any particular standards or file formats for data that are listed on the marketplace? DICOM seems to be fairly obvious for radiology, but I think this may be a real opportunity to promote standards in digital pathology where many vendors all have their own proprietary formats. Also, the use of standardized common data elements for storing any supporting clinical data would be critical. And any of you guys can chime in and answer that one.
Yeah, absolutely. DICOM is quite the standard for radiology across the board, but that's not the same scenario that we have in whole slide imaging. The question is the marketplace going to require a particular standard or file format? I think we don't know yet because we haven't written the program definitions, but I think what I can tell you is that what we would like to see is that formats or format standards are not necessarily a bottleneck. So there may be, and I know this is something that some people are working on, tools that can perhaps convert one format to another, and they have been validated. That could be a way to go initially, so that we are able to receive, the marketplace is able to receive data from a range of scanner manufacturers in whole slide imaging, which will be essential because that's a key part of our regulatory process to demonstrate or validate the performance on different scanners. But maybe initially, if the marketplace can do the conversions in a validated way, could be a way forward in the short term, while we still work on making sure that there's a standard that's recognized by everybody. I don't think we should leave out data because it's in a different format. I think we should work on making sure that we have the tools to use it in the marketplace.
And this kind of relates to the next question. Sam, this one's for you. So is this going to be just a medical imaging data marketplace? You know, we discussed some standards that are amenable to this first use case, or is this really being seen as something that's going to be expanding to more use cases, a public marketplace, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, one can dream, right? I think the acute use case that we've identified is in the medical imaging data space, right? And you have to start somewhere. But if this model ends up being extensible to other, medical data modalities, there would be no reason for us to prevent it from expanding to support that. But really, we want it to be responsive to the needs of researchers and ensuring that it's maintaining a self-sufficient model. We want the marketplace to be able to stand on its own two legs after initial setup by the government. And so, expanding too quickly could undermine that. But yeah, as long as there is demand there, I don't see any reason why not. Ileana, is there anything you would add to that?
No, so we have to start somewhere, and we probably will start with a number of indications, right? As Aldo had mentioned, that would be definitely in medical full slide pathology, because that's a huge and unmet need. TCIA has a very limited number of data sets. TCGA is not much better either. And mammography, because this is what Aldo is seeing at the FDA as the most submissions are in that space. So it's clearly an unmet need. We would require a lot of data sets, probably in tens, hundreds of thousands, if not millions data sets per each category. We're also looking for input. Hey, if we do 4 or 5 of them at the beginning, what are the most important ones after that? And we are also asking the performers most likely to come in with the best guess of an economic model. How would this work? How much the data providers would be paid? How much the data users would have to pay? By any means, we want you to make a profit. We don't, it can be a non-profit, but if you want to make a profit, that's fine. But we want you to make it in such a way that renders the data affordable at all levels. So if you have researchers that need 2,000 data sets, that should be relatively inexpensive to get it. If you have small or large companies going for FDA submission and they need hundreds of thousands of data sets, then obviously they will need to pay more, right? So you come in with that economic model when you apply. And obviously, we will give you some time to refine that. It's one thing to dream it in your office, and it's another to make sure that hospitals will agree to what you think would be reasonable, right? So
another part of that question is a public marketplace, can that be one of the considerations? If somebody proposes it, it's sustainable, meets that economic model, is that a possibility?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean in that respect.
I think it means that, are we only, please feel free to elaborate, Sandeej, but I think you're saying that, are you only looking for a financial incentive model, or can it be an open, sustainable model mechanism? Is that, Sandeej, feel free to put in the chat if that's what you mean, but I think they're exploring if it's only, if there's possibilities for it to be, a non-monetary or a more open public market.
Well, so, my guess is that nothing is sustainable until funding is poured into it, right? So the best example is the UK Biobank. And nothing's right. So you need data curation, right? Who's going to do that for free? I personally have the sense that something completely free will not be sustainable long term, because data needs to keep continuing to come in as devices evolve. The type of data will evolve, and data will continue need to be poured in. And who's going to make sure that that data is of the right quality, right? The UK Biobank has support. It has support from companies. It has support from the UK government, right? So I am all for a non-profit, but I think there should be some funds coming in and some funds going out, and some funds that should be kept for the operation and the growth, right? It can be that the profit could be minimal. If that's what you feel the economic model makes more sense, I'm all for it. But it has to be done in a sustainable way, and I personally don't see how it can remain sustainable if there are no funds coming in.
And there is a recognition that there are some groups who cannot receive financial incentives. So that's why it's really important to put those ideas in the survey as well. Making sure that you put those considerations, what you may think you can do to overcome them. It's really helpful. Sandeej, another component, there are data and software marketplaces that have buyers and sellers transaction today. So this next question, Aldo, is for you. How are you planning to prevent Frankenstein data sets where the same data from one patient is available in multiple existing repositories under different de-identified IDs?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I've seen other questions here that are very specific on the technical elements of the marketplace. That's something that we will work together with the community to solve when there are tools available developed by others. We'll implement them, and when there are new tools that need to be put together, we'll work on that as well.
Thanks, Aldo. This next question is for you, Ileana. So are you just looking for the medical imaging data, or are you looking for other wraparound data like outcomes, wearables, EHR data, social determinants of health data as well?
Well, for the beginning, I think we definitely are looking for the medical imaging data. How it grows and where it grows, I think in the end should be determined by the market. So if there is a need, I think it definitely should be incorporated. We identify the medical imaging marketplace as a clear unmet need. But if, down the road, there is a clear need for more, I think the marketplace should be flexible enough to accommodate that. And that's why going back for funding this and keeping income to grow, that's why it's important.
Thanks. Sam, this next question is for you. Is there going to be a limit on the amount of data for this marketplace? And is there expected to be a number of images per condition set as part of this program design?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Something I hadn't been asking until recently, since we started this network survey, is is there going to end up being an upper limit? I think at some point we'll have kind of diminishing returns. Like once you have 10 million broken arms, do we need another? Probably not. But if we're in a federated model, there isn't a major cost necessarily associated with providing that and allowing that to be accessible. If we end up pursuing a centralized model, you have storage costs that are associated with it. And so we may end up putting a limit. I think we don't know the answer to that specific question, but it's a problem that I would love to have, because that would mean we have a tremendous amount of data that's available to us. With regards to like a minimum amount of data, I think that gets tricky, especially when you're dealing with rare diseases where you might have real difficulty in actually obtaining data. And we'll have to really look towards different strategies that can be developed to create a comprehensive data set using providers from across the country in order to build it. I think typically we'll try to have for basic applications, sometimes you can do with thousands of data points that you're using, but ideally I think we'd be looking at tens of thousands or more. Anything else to add, Ileana or Aldo?
I was going to add
No.
our survey questions actually ask users, how much data do you need? We want to know from, not only users, but providers, how much is realistic to be able to provide. These are also encompassed in the survey. Sorry, Ileana or Aldo, did you have anything?
So we wanted to clarify that the amount of data we would require per condition is the amount of data that at least that you would need to demonstrate when you go for an FDA submission, right? So when you develop an algorithm in the lab, you need thousands of data sets. That's good enough. When you go to the FDA, you're going much, much higher. And we want to make sure that this marketplace would have the number of data sets available per condition that would enable regulatory submission. So it would be rather large for the conditions that we specify initially.
That's why I think we we believe that a mix of a federated model and a centralized model makes sense, because I really don't believe in an upper limit at all. I think that data should be always flowing, and if it's in a federated approach where the data doesn't necessarily have to be stored or has to be transferred, potentially this is as the data life cycle kicks in, where some of the data that you acquired 3-4 years ago might be obsolete because maybe the scanner they use is out of market, or they're better newer versions of it, and so I think it's more of a process rather than a particular limit that we have to. I have to say that from what I've heard from the ARPA-H colleagues, we really want to make a change to what's currently available. So if we're talking about thousands of cases, hundred thousands of cases or images in different application areas, we really want to go to the next level where data becomes not a bottleneck for any of the stages of developing these devices.
Thanks, Aldo. Any other questions? Chat? All right, Lori, do you want to bring up that last slide again? All right, thanks to our speakers today for providing all this great information for the information session. Please complete the survey. It really helps shape what a future program will look like. And thanks to everyone who have already provided those answers to those survey. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email MIDM@arpa-h.gov. Thanks for joining.